Hi, I'm Adam Jennings, and this is Awaiting Approval, a podcast about the messy human side of creative leadership. Today, I'm joined by Kat How, CEO, founder, and ECD at How&How, for a relaxed, two-way conversation about her journey, the lessons she's learned, and what it's taken to lead with creativity and honesty. Kat, hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. To kick us off, as I do with most episodes, I'd love to ask you a question that just gives those listening or watching a little bit more information about who you are. If we were to meet in person today, where would you choose and what would you order to drink?
That's a great question. I live in LA, so I'm probably a little bit lazy, so I'd say you'd have to come to me. And I would sorry, and then I would probably say that we would go to my local coffee shop, which is in Venice, and I go there quite often with for people just to get out of the office a bit. And I'd probably order a very, very classically wanky LA drink, which is an iced matcha, which I'm really into at the moment and which everyone seems to drink here. But I actually really love it. My kids hate it. My husband hates it. But I'd probably order one of those and I'd probably drink it really quickly and then have to order another one. But that's what I do. That's what we would do.
Fantastic. Well, I will join you in a digital iced matcha and raise my glass to cheer you on for the rest of this podcast. When was the last time you used pen and paper?
Every day. I am really old school. I have a little list of notes. I probably write my to-do list out 4, 5, 6 times a day, and so I just love crossing stuff off my notes. Of course, I have lots of tech that can help me, and lots of programs that can do my note taking, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is how it works better. So I have a pile of scrap that I just write, rewrite, put my notes down on, cross out, redo, put in the bin, get a new one out. And I love refreshing constantly. And I just feel like I get through so much when I do it that way. So I'm always writing and I'm always drawing. Yeah.
I love it. I'm a big proponent for having a physical to-do list that get that real
Yes,
pleasure in like striking something off. Yeah. And I've actually recently thought of something of combining two things like that gives such pleasure. One is the physical act of like scratching something off a to-do list. And now the next one is going to sound odd, but I have talked about it before. There is no better combination of writing implement and surface than a ballpoint pen and a banana skin. And if you write with one on the other, there is a feeling to that. There is a softness to it and a feeling to it. And so it struck me the other day that I want to start doing a to-do list on a banana so that I can have that double combo of satisfaction.
And you can eat at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This might not work for the audio version, but is there something around you, on your desk or near you, that you would say is typically you or gives a little insight into who you are as a creative?
I could show you what this pot is. So I've got a pot of I've got a David Hockney ceramic. I don't know what it is. I used to run a business with my husband. I used to run an e-com, and this was something that I bought from a designer. There you go. All the plants have fallen out of it. But that was many, many moons ago. I have it on my desk, but as you can see, bits and bobs. Handmade by an artist and designer. Bit quite weird, if I'm honest. I've also got a Grayson Perry one. Don't know if that looks much like him. And I've got a Frida Kahlo one as well. But anyway, that's for another day. And I suppose, what does it tell me? What does it say about me? We do love supporting the work of designer makers and artists. Is what some of our original businesses were based on. And I suppose that's, continued into the work that we do, running the agency. Yes, of course, we produce work for clients, but it's still always in an environment that supports the designers in our team. So I love that. I love that it's quite surreal but I also love that it's really useful. It holds the pen as it could hold some cacti. I think it has done in the past. So it's a nice reminder of what we've done in the past, maybe 15 years ago or so now. But whenever I look at it, I always remember exactly the business that we did and we founded back then and how it set us up for what we're doing now.
I love having those kind of reminders front and center of
Yeah.
something that was important, on the journey, on the path to where you are now. Talking of which, I would love for you to just take us over the next couple of minutes to do just a bullet point of where you started in your career to where you are now. You don't have to necessarily include every single place, but points, milestones that were important for you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I read English literature at university at Bristol Uni, which seems like a bit of an odd start into the creative world. But I always loved design. I always loved design, but I always loved language. And I listened to my dad, and I do love my dad. But he told me to go to a good university, get a good degree. Art can always be a side hustle or a hobby. And I thought, oh, okay, and I did. But then I ended up always writing about art still, even though it really pissed my tutors off, who were like, God, you should have just done a history of art degree, or at least just gone to art school instead. So I did that, and then I went into journalism, started writing art reviews, was a design critic for several national newspapers, but always felt like that was just really, there was something really reductive about it. I felt like I was always critiquing the work of other people, wasn't doing it myself, and who was I to judge, really? So I retrained in graphics, moved to Australia, cut my teeth at some agencies out there, made some big mistakes, as you can imagine. But I think I did quite well there because they loved the sort of conceptual thinking that I brought. I think possibly from all that thinking and all that narrative work that I'd done in my literature degree, but also in the writing I'd done. And then I came back to London then after a few years there, went to St Martin's and then did my MA there, then got the extra dimension of the graphics and that understanding and even more of that conceptual thinking. And then, my husband and I then started we set up and run a couple of businesses, one of which we sold to a competitor, another one that we just ran as well. That's still sort of partly running, and set up the agency as a bit of a side project to design a brand for one of these businesses that we had, and we worked with a designer on that. And he said, you guys should just set up an agency. Surely this is, you've run your previous companies a bit like agencies. We focus a lot on marketing, we focus a lot on art direction. So it did make sense. My husband had been at the BBC for about, 8 years at that point. So we had a lot of broadcasting experience, business experience, creative experience, and it so we didn't go looking for it. It all sort of came together in one place. So we set up the agency with the designer that had helped us with this one brand. We then moved to Portugal, which was not really part of the plan. So we actually we officially opened up How&How in Portugal after we moved, because before then we'd just been operating a bit like sort of just doing your job here and there, but it wasn't really a thing. That was 5 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. And I'm now in LA, but I suppose that's another story for another question, perhaps. But that's the arc.
Fantastic and fascinating. And how much you mentioned about the sort of narrative work from the degree, like how much has that been a constant? um, I'm imagining it's a kind of core to how you approach
Yeah.
solving a creative challenge, but how much of that has been a constant through?
Always. We're always taught, what's the story? What's the story? And I still always think, what's the story when I apply it to a brand? Every brand has a different story. Everything that I used to write about always had its own story. And so we even apply that to marketing. Like, okay, we've done this rebrand, but what's even the story behind the rebrand? What can we leverage? What's going to make it interesting? What's unique about it? So it's just a thread that we use. And another thing I learned, which I think is transferable to what we do now, is also leading with strong imagery and knowing the importance of a good picture. Sometimes we'd run an article, purely because we had some great photography, and then the writing itself was slightly secondary to that, which is an interesting way of seeing it, but it's so that it happens. And so lead with a big story, lead with a great photo, make the story less important, but there's always got to be a story. So I learned that, and I think that's never gone away. I think it's really helped us to grow in the last 5 years, because we approach it with a slightly different view, perhaps, because of my background, because of my husband's background in broadcasting as well. So we when we started, we didn't really know much about anything. We had no contacts in the industry. We didn't know anything about how to run an agency whatsoever. Zero, literally zero. I've worked in a few, but obviously that was just it was, I was just a junior designer at that point. So yeah, we've learned a lot in the last 5 years, but there are definitely some themes that have never left us.
And I love the idea of moving from place to place as well. Like, have you found
Mm.
cultural creative differences have come into play with those moves? Maybe not with clients so much, but maybe more with
Oh,
those that you're working with in different places?
yeah. When we started, we opened doors in May 2020. So everything was different back then. um, and everyone was remote, and it was the height of the second lockdown. So I can't remember. What all I remember is it was absolutely bonkers, and it was literally probably one of the worst times to open. But hey, that's fine. There's never a good time, like they say. So everyone was remote. So actually, culturally, we didn't see any of that because we just had someone in Germany, we had someone in London. We thankfully found a few people in Portugal, but because my mum's Portuguese, which is part of the reason why we were there. But culturally, in Portugal, graphics is not really that. It's not considered something that people should go into culturally, which is difficult for the younger generation who want to do that, but it's not really seen in this. It's still quite sort of old school in terms of its approach. It's changing, of course, but still, it's the convention is to do medicine or architecture or engineering, and so it's difficult for designers to get a look in. Still, I believe. And also the population is very small. So we found I believe we found some of the best designers in Portugal to work for us at that point. They're incredible people, still really good friends. But it was difficult to find, talent there. We knew that there was a lot more talent in London, bigger place, lots more art schools, there's a lot more going on. So we were working remotely with people from London. And then I suppose that's how we started to grow the agency in two places. We opened up a studio in Lisbon, and we also then opened up a studio in London to cater. And it was a bit of a learning curve because at the beginning, we were hiring mostly project managers in Lisbon because there was a lack of talent on the ground in Lisbon. And there was great. We had some, again, great project managers who could help us, but then we were hiring all our design talent in London, which is where the better designers were, or that was more design talent to choose from. And then it was strange because originally we were like, yeah, we could just do everything remotely. It's fine. It's cool. It's what everyone's doing right now. And we thought it was going to last, but then we realized that actually the teams started to say, whenever we want to get on a call about the designers in London, said if we ever want to go on a call about anything particularly, it could be anything small, we always have to do it remotely. And just having those two teams working as one, there were some great benefits, but there were also, when people started to want to go back to the office and, the lockdowns weren't so severe, then we started realizing that actually we did need that hierarchical structure in each place in order to make it work. And so now the cultural thing has changed in the sense that we now have people in hubs instead of all scattered and all remote.
Mm.
Mm.
I mean, that echoes a lot of my own personal experience, but also what I've heard from others across different agencies and different creative disciplines as well. And I think it's interesting. I saw a post just maybe a week or so ago of someone saying, you will fight me on the hill to get me back into the office. And I thought, what an interesting take, because I feel like more and more I'm hearing people say, especially in the creative industries,
Mm.
say, actually, I want to be in a room, maybe not all the time anymore, maybe not 5 days a week, but every now and again, I want to get in a room with creatives and feel that
Mm.
energy in person. And I
Mm.
think there's a balance that we haven't yet understood how to find, because I think it's probably different for each organization, for each project, maybe even, I don't
Yeah.
know, but there's a balance to find in that.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
when you think back through those years of everything that you've done and that you took us through, is there a point in there, in that whole journey, that you would go back to yourself at the age you are then, but knowing what you know now? And if there is, what would you say to yourself at that point?
I think there was a point when we were running our first business that we could have probably. I think we probably did it for a bit too long. I always say this to my husband. We go out for dinner and we talk about work all the time. It's great. But I'm always like, oh, imagine if we'd actually just, stopped earlier and we just got into what we're doing now earlier. Or imagine if we hadn't moved to Australia and we just moved to LA instead, like 10 years ago, as opposed to, 18 months ago. But I don't really like to dwell on regrets. But I would like to say it took us a long time to realize what we were doing, really, I suppose. We always realized we wanted to work, but we realized very early on we wanted to work together. And that has basically been why we set up businesses together. There's been no real impulse from me in terms of wanting, we always knew we wanted to set up our own businesses as well. But I suppose it would have been to not have spent so long on our first business, because I think we did learn a lot. We know a lot now about how to run businesses, and we had some good times. We had some bad times. We hired our first team. We've never done that before. And now I've been around the block quite a few times, which is good. So I would say probably that I should have not run my first business for as long as we did, maybe. But we also did lots of other stuff. We had 2 kids in time as well, and so got that out of the way. It's not that it's something to get out of the way, but and so there's lots of other life things that happened during that time, which I suppose why it's extended. But I would probably have moved a bit more quickly and shaken things up a bit more quickly back then, and seeing the opportunity globally a bit earlier. But that's hindsight, isn't it?
Exactly. There's always what ifs, and I
Yeah.
hear you about the not dwelling on regrets. I try and purposefully look back at what ifs rather than a regret, because I think it's
Same.
sometimes fun to explore that. What does that different path look like? And is there something relevant for me right now? I can't go back and change that choice, but could I learn something from it? Can I implement that in
Yeah.
the present? Hi. If what we're talking about in this episode is resonating with you, the challenges faced are the ones that are in front of you right now, the path they've taken is your dream career path, whatever it may be, stick around until the end of this episode to find out how you can work directly with me to level up your leadership skills. Get 30 years worth of experience downloaded into your skill set in just 4 weeks. At the same time, meet amazing other design leaders as part of your cohort. Thanks for listening. I'll see you at the end. Thinking of everything that you've produced, everything that's gone out the door, all the pieces of work you've done, all the campaigns, all the projects, all the brands, everything, is there one piece that sticks in your mind as something you're most proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously every project that we produce is like there's beauty in everyone. And so, in fact, each time we produce something and the team are like, "Oh no, I don't think we can case study this one," I'm always like, "Oh, surely everyone." But there is one I think recently that we've all really loved, and that was a project we did for a company called Wild Things. They were previously known as Just Whole Foods, and they're a vegan candy that basically have a lot less sugar and a lot less additives, and they're basically, I mean, I'm I've got 2 young kids, and sometimes I don't buy them sweets, but sometimes if they if they have a party or if there's a goodie bag or something, sometimes they're a necessary evil. And so this company, Fliss, who was the founder, came to us, and she wanted to shake things up, and they were being sold in health food shops and whatnot, but they realized they needed something different. And so I think what we love collectively about this project, I think if you ask anyone on the team, they would all say Wild Things, which I think is great, because we all had a hand in it at the beginning. We actually did something we're going to do for another client the next few weeks, which is we had an entire team brainstorm about what names, because we had to come up with a new name, and we had to come up with the new designs for the sweets themselves, which is just a joy. And we had I think there was about 20 of us at the time. Everyone, we did a group call, a Zoom call, to incorporate everyone who was remote or who was working from home at that time, and included the interns, the account managers, myself and Rog, everyone on the team. And we just had lots of fun for an hour, and we, made lots of mood boards and ideas, and then we had a good old laugh about it and brainstorm. So everyone felt they were part of the project from the beginning. Then, of course, we then, segued off into like smaller teams to do the actual work. But everyone had a hand in it. The work itself was so different. We took it completely out of category. We looked at what people were doing in whole food shops, and it was worthy, and it was white, and it was all very, woolly and sort of hempy. And we actually took inspiration from state culture. And I think we had designed this mascot called V, based on a Venus flytrap, and she was inspired by a tattoo. And so we thought, like, why? We asked ourselves the question: Haribo and Skittles and all these companies that are full of sweets, full of sugar, awful, really bad, full of additives and preservatives, like, they seem to have all the fun. They're really colourful. Kids are like, oh my gosh, we love that. And they just gravitate towards them. So why can't we do the same? And I think we just love that point of difference and that differentiation, completely pulling it into a different category, and then seeing the results. Like Fliss has just, ever since we launched the brand, I think it was the end of last year, she's just, she's now is stocked in Whole Foods, now stocked in Ocado, now stocked in all the things that she wanted to achieve in her 5-year plan. She's done in 6 months, and I do believe she's working very hard, but I do believe the brand has done so much of the hard work as well to help get her in that place as well. So love that project. And a great client as well, really brave, trusted us, was just up for it, and it's just like the best.
When I asked that question, I can always tell a genuine response because your face lit up as you were talking about it, and I think that says so much about how much you feel about the work and that project and that client, and how focused you were, and whatever the word is that I'm struggling to find, but that word, how much of that,
Yes.
you were sort of invested. That's the word I'm looking for, in this, emotionally invested in it. And I genuinely think, especially when you're talking about brand creation, to a similar extent, campaign work and product work as well. But when you do have that emotional investment as the creator, it somehow comes through. It's like on-screen chemistry between two actors, right? I think if you put that into your work, somehow that comes through and speaks to the consumer or the user or whoever it is that is the target. And it's certainly making me want to check out whether or not they're in, as a vegan, check out whether or not they're in the UK and stuff my face full of sweets that don't have sugar. I mean, that's great. We're going to take a little dip in a different direction, but I promise you we'll come back. Is there a point in time when you look back over your career where something didn't go quite as planned? And what did you learn from that?
I mean, there's been so many. I mean, every day I feel like, I think every day, I think one thing I've learned is that there's always, every day there's challenges, isn't there? There's always stuff that you have to, that work around. I suppose it was when we decided to sunset the Lisbon team and the Lisbon office. This happened because we're going to stay in Lisbon. We were really a little bit about what I spoke about before with the teams and the struggle that we were having. And we thought we'd go all in on Lisbon. We were like, okay, let's go all in on London. Let's go all in on Lisbon. We got this really beautiful, well, it wasn't at the time, it was this awful cafe in the middle of town, but right next to the river. And it was just like, it hadn't been touched for about 25 years. So we got this place and we gutted it, and we put so much work in. We made this beautiful studio. It looked amazing. It had concrete floors. We had this amazing kitchen with this beautiful island. We had, mirrors everywhere, massive plants, really good. I mean, it was phenomenal. It had glass doors on either side, so it's loads of light. And then, so we spent all this money. We, got really invested in it. It was quite a big challenge. It took us months and months and months. And we thought we just, by sheer force of will, we could make Portugal work. It didn't happen. Our idea was then to move to LA for a year and then come back and have a team there that could run things. But because of how things were structured, and I think we probably hadn't really thought enough about how to structure things properly and how to have the right support for the team there. It basically happened that we weren't able to do that, and we weren't able to have the right team in place there to be able to do that. So we knew that Portugal couldn't happen. There was a realization over it. It was sort of happened overnight. We were like, actually, this is like, how have we been so blind to seeing that this can't happen anymore? So that was a difficult decision. We had to sunset the Lisbon team, but we offered them jobs in London and in LA, because we still needed those positions. And we loved that team as well. Some of them are still with us. In fact, all the ones in Lisbon we've actually still work with freelance, and Jojo's still in the Lisbon office but works remote. So we've tried to make it work. But that was difficult. And I think obviously when you have to, even though you are offering someone a job somewhere else, lots of the people over in Portugal had young families and they couldn't do that, and that was completely fair enough. And I think, having to make that decision was really tough, and it was a really stressful few weeks, to be honest. After all after all the excitement of what we could potentially do in Portugal, and then realizing that it actually couldn't work for a number of reasons. So that was great. And I think what I've learned from that is to always be mindful of where you're at, and not, sometimes there's opportunities, and you should be able to see those opportunities. Sometimes those opportunities aren't necessarily there, and people aren't doing them in a particular place because of other things. And I think it's just being sensitive to where there's opportunity that can be grasped and amplified, and where there isn't, and where there's just like a bit of stubbornness from our position. I think we were a little bit like narrow-minded. I think we just thought, like, if we just went for it, it would happen. And there are different other things in place. It's more difficult to set up business in Portugal, other things culturally that just made it a bit more tricky. So now over here in LA, we're a lot more test the water, see what happens, and that was a learning. But
It's never easy, that part of leadership, whether that be through circumstances like this or other circumstances. That parting of ways conversation is always difficult for both parties, understandably so, for those being let go or asked to reorg or move or shift or what have you, but also for leadership as well. I promised you we would take that detour and then come back to a more positive vibe. So let's do that now. We talked about something from your career that you're proud of. What are you most proud of outside of work?
I like the fact that we can have really good dinner parties. I know that that's a bit of a, I think that's a bit of a random one, but I was talking to my friend on the weekend. She's still in Lisbon, and she was like, "Oh, since you guys have left, I really miss my old friends in Portugal." But she was like, "Oh, we just don't have those parties that we used to have at your house." I love having people over all the time, Roger, and I love having people over, and here it's like a 3 or 4 time a week thing. So I suppose I come from a massive Portuguese family where everyone was constantly in each other's houses, and there was always parties, and I really thrive on that sort of on having people around. And I definitely am not very good at being by myself. I like going by myself to a restaurant. I just don't know what I do with myself. So I always like the noise and the chatter. I don't know what that says about me, but hey. So I like that I'm proud that I'm able to bring people together and bring people from different walks of life together. We had a house party a few weeks ago here. We've only been here for not very long, and quite a lot of people were commenting that we already knew more people than they had, and they'd lived here for like 11 years. So I think we're always really interested in people, and we are, I suppose, generous with our time and generous with hosting. We always cook big meals. We love to spend a lot on just having good wine and good food, and it's always, we used to have Portugal as well, and I think we love creating spaces where people feel that they can, drop in after work, or there'll always be some food for people to eat, or we'll always have a glass of wine ready if they want, or so I think I'm proud that we can create nice communities wherever we go, and that we are not that we know lots of different people from lots of different walks of life. And I wouldn't say that we're picky at all or cliquey in who we want to chat to, because anyone is anyone is interesting, I've just invited one of my neighbours who I met whilst I was putting up the recycling yesterday. I was like, do you want to come over for lunch? Oh yeah, that'd be great. And she's just over there. And then, so there's always, yeah, I think I'm proud of that.
I like that. I really like the community aspect and the just sharing bread with people, breaking bread with people. I really love that. So you talked about bringing people together and hosting and, meeting new people and bringing them into this sort of group of people that you know. And I know, that you are very generous with your time through mentoring and through awards, judging and things like that. So I would love to know, what's the best piece of advice that you've had from someone, kind of flipping that mentorship and judge the other way around through your career? What's a really sort of gold nugget piece of advice that's stuck with you?
Hmm. Hmm. It's funny. There's an Anthony Burrell print. I know it's very overused, but it's work hard and be nice to people. I think we've always, so that wasn't even advice. It's just a poster I've seen, which I've always had as a bit of a mantra, but I think you are either self-motivated or not. So although I like that, and I've always trying to remember that, I think I probably would just work hard anyway, regardless. But I don't know, advice. I, hmm, um, I remember it was one of my teachers at art school who I remember just said, just go big or go home. I think it was to do with this piece of work, and we all absolutely hated it. We loved it at the end. Well, but they did really, rinse us. And so it was quite a difficult time. But I love that expression, go big or go home, because I have applied it to quite a lot of the attitude we have in our business, and indeed, I think I'd say arguably for almost for every single member of our team, as well as we never finish when we can't go bigger or better. And I think we're currently doing a rebrand as well, and this phrase has been coming up as well, like, because we just life's too short to just be in the shadows. And so I think I love that. I mean, I apply it to things like my earrings and my jewelry. I love big jewelry, and I love that expression of just, like, I suppose, exuberance and just enthusiasm for something. So I think when he said that to me, I was like, oh, you're right. Just put in all the effort that you can. Otherwise, why are you there? What's the reason for you being there? So yeah. And I actually said this to my daughter the other day, and this is another thing I just told her. But uh, like, she asked me what I wanted to be when I was her age when I grew up, and I then flipped it and said, well, what do you want to be? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, whatever you do, and just be outrageous in whatever you do, but just have fun doing it. So I think that's it's just not taking things too seriously and just going, and grabbing and being ambitious and going for as big an opportunity as you possibly can. So I apply that, to my life, to where we live, to how we do our weekends, and how we plan people coming over, and how we try and approach clients, the ambitions we have for the agency. So, I mean, that might be a personal thing, but definitely I think it would apply to most people.
What a great mantra. And I have something similar in that idea of, there's that sort of productivity hack of looking at your list of things to do and targeting the most difficult ones first, or the ones that you don't want to do first, to get those out the way. And it's sort of similar alignment with that idea of pushing yourself further. Don't stop at well, I've done it. It's technically complete. Then taking a breather and saying, okay, but how can I go from making it technically complete to making it bloody awesome? Where can I push this that little bit more to get that amazing result, as opposed to the meh result?
Exactly.
And so I really love that. Which is an interesting sort of jump into the penultimate question that I have for you, which is, everything is changing across all creative industries right now, with the sort of rapidly emerging tech and financial constrictions across the globe and everything else that's happening and going on. What are you hearing and seeing as the main challenges for people working in the industries? And what words of wisdom, hope, encouragement might you give to those who either are getting into the industry right now or who are in it but have been out of work for a while?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it is a tricky time in the creative industries. I mean, every client we speak to wants um, AI automation for something or other, and they want and they expect that. How can you? What sort of prompts are you going to use for our tone of voice? What sort of prompts are you going to use for our illustration? Because we don't want, we want to be able to create it in house. And we're like, well, maybe you should just use a normal, like an actual illustrator for that because they can do better. Oh no, we don't want that. So, there's constantly this struggle between knowing what will make the work the best work, and then having to deliver on expectations of clients that's just inevitably happening, and there's nothing we can do about it. To also put our head in the sand and say, we don't work with AI or we don't use this, and we are proud. I'm really proud that we have a head of copy as an actual human, because I do think what he produces is the best and better than a machine can. I'm really proud that we have an actual illustrator, but I'm also really proud that we do use AI in lots of things in our business as well. So I think to people entering right now, I think it's an exciting time for designers starting out, just because I think there is a real opportunity to really educate yourself on these programs and start testing, and even things like vibe coding. It's like something I'm trying to get my son into. He's only 11, but there's a lot going on. There is definitely an AI bubble happening. There's a lot of stuff that are good ideas. There's a lot of stuff that's bad ideas, and everything's getting funded, it seems, at the moment. And I think that bubble will burst at some point. But it's an exciting time of opportunity if you grasp it and if you educate yourself on what you can do with it. It's also worrying, of course, and we have a Slack channel where we share reflections and thoughts and links and stuff about AI. And this is principally to really educate ourselves on what's out there and what we can use and what we also should steer well clear of. And I think the best thing people can do is actually just immerse themselves in it and start trying and testing and experimenting, because it's not going anywhere. And, my husband's in San Francisco Tech Week this week, and he said it might as well just be called AI Week, because literally every single session is about that. And that's just the reality we have right now. So I think it's about empowering yourself to know how to use the tools and how those can enhance your work as a designer. There are some great programs. Of course, there's a lot of conflict as well around Gen AI, and oh no, we might use this to help enhance this, but hang on, where did it get this source material from? So there's, for us, particularly in the creative industry, that is also really challenging. It's not just like, oh, let's educate ourselves in these programs. It's like, do we even feel good about using this? And there are some which do graphic design, and we're like, what? And there's others which do more photography, but that's all, And so, where do we stand on that? But also acknowledging that this is now going to become woven into the fabric of what we do. So we also have to have, we also need to know what's out there. So I think I certainly don't have the answers, but I feel like the best thing to do with anything that's unknown and new is just education and just taking control of it, and actually just knowing more about what's out there. So instead of shying away, actually immersing yourself. So we're training people to just take some time and just to fiddle about with stuff and look at stuff and then share their thoughts. And we feel that's the best way of doing it, because we have to integrate it into what we do, and we are already. So so I think it's a time of great opportunity, but it's also a time of great concern. Particularly for people who are wanting to get back into work. But I think it's a crazy old time. Yeah.
Kat, last question. It's the same question that I ask every guest. Are you, Kat, awaiting approval?
It's quite funny because I had this. I'll just take a bit of a back step, because I've had this in my diary as a block out in my diary, and it's always like awaiting approval. And I've been looking at my diary in the last few days. I'm like, what does that mean? And does that mean you're waiting approval? Like, am I still waiting? Am I supposed to spend that? Or is this like a hold that we put in because we don't know? So of course I'm waiting approval. I mean, I don't really need to. I'm waiting approval in the sense that I know I've got more to do, but I don't really. In terms of approval from others, I've always been quite single-minded, and I don't really feel like I need the approval of others. So I just sort of, I feel like I've never really looked, even your question about advice, I've never really looked to others for advice. I'm inspired by people that I like and that I think are doing good work, but I've never needed approval from someone. So I think I'm not awaiting approval from that, but nobody's perfect. I know I've got a long way to go as well. So no is the answer.
I love it.
If it had to be so binary.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you. So just as we wrap up, this is your chance to let people know how they can get in touch with you, what you've got going on, anything else that you would like to share.
Well, of course. Yes, you can get in touch with us. Well, you can follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Indeed, you can follow me on LinkedIn if you want, but I tend to be quite sweary and post 3 times a week, which I probably shouldn't do, but I've always got something to say. And yeah, we've got some really exciting projects coming up, really, really exciting ones. Some big names in the US, some big names in England. So watch this space. But yeah, do reach out if you want anything at all.
Fantastic. Kat, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me.
If today's conversation got you thinking about your own growth as a creative leader, then my program, Supercharge Creative Leaders, might well be the next step for you. It's a 4-week cohort designed to help those in leadership positions and those aspiring to be in leadership positions to lead at a world-class level. You'll learn how to communicate with impact, grow your confidence, and lead teams that thrive, all without losing your creativity. It's a mix of pre-recorded video sessions, live Q&As with me and the rest of your cohort, and an incredible community of peers who will support you along the way. People who've already been through the course have gone on to win new roles, land promotions, get huge multi-million-dollar pitches, and they all put it down to the course and the confidence it gave them. So if you're ready to get noticed, get promoted, or finally step into that dream role, join the next cohort. Head to growwithadamjennings.com and sign up to Supercharged Creative Leaders. I can't wait to start working with you. Awaiting Approval is a Cordial Fox production, hosted by Adam Jennings, produced by Adam Jennings and Jasmine Egner.